small correction. You're under the apprehension that they make these measurements for the globe, but they don't. All of the measurements start off on the equatorial plane. So the first step of any of this description for a globe ever is going to start with the angle measurements off a flat Earth to describe with respect to the equatorial plane. That's called the celestial sphere. Now, the celestial sphere is just a North Pole centric map of the stars over a flat plane. Well, with all of those angles to all of those stars, you can start plotting them out and deriving various values, one of which can be your radial value. You can plot that by taking the minimum elevation angle measurement to Polaris. So at the point that it's inferred on their latitude grid to reach zero, that's what they call the equator. So it's not exactly a back engineering, it's a prerequisite requirement that their edge of a sphere value, where Polaris starts to disappear, must match up with the minimum flat Earth angle measurement to Polaris, because that's how it's actually used. So for every single claim to be sphere proof ever, their starting point, the genesis of that claim for a globe, is with the equatorial plane and the celestial sphere over it. That's why when back engineering tangent point horizons or at your feet out to a GP in space, at some stage they have to transpose down that angle they couldn't acquire from the surface because it's curved into the middle of the globe, effectively making the globe nothing more than a glorified protractor sat on the top of a flat plane with the dome of the heavens wrapped around that. So the equatorial plane is your flat Earth map. That's what it is. That's where their globe comes from. So to infer that that's wrong would be to say that every single globe measurement, claim, and inference of orbit that comes thereafter is also wrong, because that's where they came from. The world's been measured flat and turned spherical from angle measurements to stars. That's why I'm giving you such a hard time over this, if I'm honest with it. I want you to understand it implicitly, because it's important. It's the genesis of the globe measurements. They don't come from anything spherical. They come from a flat plane. It's called the equatorial plane. And without it, you don't have a globe.
So we completely agree on all that. Okay, let me say one thing. We completely agree on all that. And then the difference here is what you guys are calling celestial geometry, I think someone said, right? I'm just calling non-Euclidean. Okay? But we agree on the whole thing. They went out on a flat Earth like they always do, and then they made flat Earth measurements, and then they made up assumptions about how we see stuff in the sky, how far away they can pretend they are, and they started making the globe. Then they run around.
No, they didn't. They didn't. They just measured the angles and got the positional data. So the positional data, which is what goes into the, what is it called? The ephemeris? Is that the original one? Adam would know better. I'll probably pipe up. But
yeah.
Right, so you've got all of the tracked data of where these stars are above at what time. So tonight, go outside, look directly above your head, and pretend there's a star at your zenith. Well, you are at that star's GP at that time. So if you write down, right, it's now 8:34 p.m. and X star, whatever it is, Sigma 2574, is at my zenith. And you can note that that is its position. And you can track that indefinitely. Where's it above in 20 minutes? Where's it above in an hour? Where's it above in 4 hours? And you can write it all down in a nice big book. That's where it all starts. That's where the globe begins. Writing down
I agree.
relationships of stars over a flat Earth. Then that goes into a book, and it all develops from there. Like I say, from those measurements, you can go to radial value. So that's you started talking about orbits. Well, where do orbits come from? Well, orbits come from the extrapolation of R, either through Al-Biruni or with the use of the ephemeris and the flat plane, the equatorial plane. That's minimum elevation to Polaris. Flat Earth angle. That gives you your R value. Then R can be inserted into the orbital mechanics given you by Kepler and Huygens. So then you've got a scaling value with the transit of Venus because you've already got distance, but no, you've already got scale, but no distance. So once you insert R into Venus's value, you can scale and distance the whole thing based on the starting point of a flat Earth angle measurement to Polaris to give you a radial value to turn Earth into a sphere, to put Earth around the Sun in an orbital motion, and have Venus, when transiting the Sun, give you a scale value for Kepler's third law of interplanetary motion. That's the full journey from flat Earth measurement to Keplerian reification of orbit. Or to put it shortly, orbit requires measurements of a flat Earth.
I agree with all that. I don't think I said orbit, but I agree with all that. All I'm making the point is, like, if you go out, you take your zenith, you're going to get your azimuth, you're going to take elevation angle measurements all the way up, right? And you're going to get a dome around you. They say they took the flat Earth measurements with your little azimuthal grid, and then they said, okay, actually, we're going to put the stars infinitely far away, draw straight lines all the way out to them infinitely, and we're going to hijack these measurements and flip them into the interior radius value of a sphere, just like you explained in detail. And then they're going to turn around now in 2024 and say, look, the globe model matches the sky, ha ha ha, when it was literally they hijacked perspective and the sky to make it.
Yeah,
The
exactly.
part that I'm saying is, yeah, you guys are saying like celestial geometry or something, right? And
Celestial,
I'm saying,
just get the term right. So it's celestial navigation is the name of the mathematics and the process. So it's not named geometric anything. It's celestial navigation.
well, someone said terrestrial geometry and celestial geometry, as if like what's in the sky doesn't adhere to our terrestrial geometry.
Terrestrial navigation and celestial navigation. So terrestrial navigation could be the same exact process in a first glance, but you're not. You can use real trig if you've got a lighthouse that you're sighting and you're measuring the angle to, because you know where the lighthouse is on the map. Obviously, it's on the map, and you know how high the lighthouse is, so you can use it to triangulate your position with standard trig. But that's terrestrial based navigation. When you're using the stars, there's one very, very specific detail, don't get triggered, that you must understand when distinguishing between the two. And that is that the height of the stars bears no influence on the angle to the measurement of the star. That is to say, you measure it in a dinghy, you get 45 degrees. Now, by coincidence, there's a helicopter above you at 50,000 feet with a sextant, and he measures the same star at the same time as you do. He also gets 45 degrees. So you can both have the same almanac. The world is treated as a perfectly flat Earth in terms of navigation and mapping.
Yeah, but it's not perfectly